Well, I'm joined in the studio by Sashy Nathan, who's a solicitor and co-founder of Commons Legal, a not-for-profit criminal law firm. Thanks very much for coming in to talk to us this evening. What do you make of these recommendations by David Lammy?
Well, I think the fact that Lammy recommendations are going to be implemented mostly is something to be welcomed. The fact there's political consensus on this issue is a good thing. There are some problems, of course, with some of the Lammy recommendations. Things such as early guilty pleas and some of the issues around data gathering need to be resolved. But I think in terms of the pertinent issue at the moment, which is how do we achieve better representation in the judiciary, if we want our judiciary to reflect wider society and the communities in which they're supposed to serve, I think setting agendas and setting targets is not going to be enough. We need better investment in the criminal justice system in general. There's never been a less attractive time for any lawyer, whether they're from an ethnic minority or not, to practice legal aid or criminal justice system work.
So you're saying, in a sense, this is not that this target, this goal is admirable, but there's got to be more investment behind it.
There's got to be a lot more investment in the criminal justice system. There's tremendous difficulty if you're working in a legal aid practice as a defence practitioner. You're now incentivised to work in a way that minimises your time and your input. You have extremely limited resources. Those resource limitations also apply to people who work in the prosecution and even the judiciary and also the police. So if we want to see the decision makers, our judges, reflect society as as it is widely composed, we do need to think about, are we actually making the criminal justice system an attractive place to work for anyone, regardless of their ethnicity?
You've gone into the law. You're a practicing solicitor. What were your counterparts like? Was it a diverse intake? Was it not?
There was a diverse intake. I think one big issue around the problem with the lack of ethnic minorities being represented in the higher parts of the judiciary is actually the lack of social mobility, especially in the criminal justice sector. So unless you went to a red brick university, or unless you went to you had a middle class upbringing, it's actually quite difficult to qualify, especially now, and be able to sustain practicing as a legal aid lawyer when you've got all these debts that you need to pay off.
So back to your point that there needs to be more funding behind the system. Can I just ask you about the government's response? So the minister in charge has said that he doesn't favour targets for ethnic minority judges. What do you think of that?
So I think targets alone are not enough. And David Linton's talked about looking at the pipeline and this issue, but what the minister hasn't talked about is the fact that this government hasn't made any commitments on spending more and investing more in the criminal justice system. I mean, having a well-functioning criminal justice system is to all our benefits. It's the place where some of the biggest moral issues and moral problems that we have get decided, and we can't keep cutting funding to every aspect of it and expect to have an outcome that is going to be attractive to people who want to be lawyers. This week we've seen the case of Liam Allen, which is something that may not have happened 10 years ago.
Accused of rape.
Who was accused of rape, and essentially a simple issue of disclosure could have prevented what was nearly a very perverse outcome. I also think that social mobility, there are movements around how we can increase better social mobility, which I think will have an impact on ethnic minority representation. There are good reports out there by the Young Legal Aid Lawyers Group. There are initiatives like the Justice First initiative to try and get people from sort of minority backgrounds into the profession. But all in all, we do need greater investment. There's no easy silver bullet of setting targets, I'm afraid.
Okay, Sashy Nathan, good to talk to you. Many thanks.
Thank you.